Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode, which is Cerebral TV Chat, where we chat about TV cerebrally. But this one is a little bit maybe of a unique one because I'm not just going to talk about a TV show for its cerebral capabilities, although it has plenty. I'm going to talk about a show because I love the show. And when you don't have as much to do, TV becomes more in your life, which I am hoping that my life will rebuild itself. And I am rebuilding it as well. And you know what? That's sometimes actually a very powerful thing, that is okay that you have these sort of valley periods because you're rebuilding yourself, or maybe for the first time. So I do watch some TV. And one of my favorite shows absolutely is called Watson. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you've heard of it. It's this retelling of Sherlock Holmes and Watson. I mean, yeah, it's a bit conceptual. You have to go with that for sure. Definitely not traditional Holmes and Watson stuff, but so very, very cool anyway. And it has this sort of hint of mystery, which I really love. Just this amazing hint of mystery, at least in the first season, which was last season. So I guess it was sort of September, October 2024, maybe. And man, what a show. I don't know if anybody else has seen it or anybody else likes it, but as you know, I don't talk to many people these days, but maybe you might like it. But I'm going to call it, as the young people call it, fire. Man, that TV show's fire. I don't know. I watched some YouTube videos, and the YouTube influencers, not unlike me, I'm what is known in the parlance as a small creator, a small channel creator. That's okay. I'm going to build it up. And they say, man, that's fire. Man, those cookies, they're fire. Okay, right on, So I think that I want to call things fire now because I'm fire as well. But so I think the thing that I really want to talk about a bit is the history of the show, and then what the hell are they doing to it? Because unfortunately, if you watch TV at all, like I have, you know that there is a series of things that people can do after a successful first season. And it's so sad because there's usually not a third season. And it breaks your heart. That has happened to me in so many series that I've watched. And I don't want it to happen to Watson. So, for example, I'm going to talk about another show, Doc. I may put it on as its own show, but right now I'm just going to mention for something that people are doing right. Doc was a very powerful show, too. Both of them, interestingly enough, are about people with brain injury. And, of course, I've had brain injury, so that actually is, very captivating for me to watch. His was a little more mysterious. Hers she had got with a car accident, which I did too. But in her case, her personality changed completely. Mine might have, actually. I'm certainly not the person I used to be, but I think there are other pieces towards that because, involvement for me, spiritual and psychological and everything else. Every other way, maybe even physical. But so that's the story. And they had a really good first season. Quite interesting. I liked it. I thought it was amazing. And their second season is now also different. But they did a good job with it. It's weird. It's like they extended the story. They didn't make a whole new story, really. Like a whole different story. In a way, they did it a little bit, but I just like it. So not that this isn't about Doc, though. But to give you an idea of the difference between Doc and Watson, even though they're both about brain injury. So the first season of Watson was so amazing. They were talking about cutting-edge medicine, and neuroscience is still new enough that people are thinking it's cool. Genetics, is still new enough. Epigenetics is still new enough. Epigenetics being, of course, how your genes are affected by external things. This took me a while to understand, but this is the cerebral piece. You have DNA, you have genes, we all do. We all get them from our parents. And sometimes we get them from random mutations. What happens too. It's really a cool chat to have with AI if you want about, genetics and how do you get your genes, how your genes express. It's very cool. So epigenetics is kind of how your genes express themselves. If you've had a really good life, a really easy life, not a hard life, your genes are going to express one way. If you've had the life I've had, your genes are probably going to express a different way, which is in a way what makes me quite the extraordinary girl who lived, because my genes didn't always express that way, even though you would expect them to do that. So that's what makes me quite extraordinary, because nobody knows why that happened. But again, genes can do what they want, right? They really can. They can express in a way, any way they choose to express. And if you're a God person, like I am, that's also into play. So that's what Watson is kind of about. He's a geneticist, right? He actually studies the codes, the gene codes, and sees if he can help people, with maybe serious disorders, serious illnesses, things that nobody else can help with. That was the Holmes Clinic, and they call it the Holmes Clinic because Sherlock Holmes founded it for him. Now, apparently, if you haven't watched the first season, spoilers ahead, because it's extraordinary. Not unlike me. And it's basically the story about how Holmes is this black guy from Pittsburgh. I know, you're like, what? and he's not English. He's an American guy. So it's conceptual, but just such a lovely, brilliant guy. Like, amazing. God, he's so captivating. I just love him. He's just fantastic. Anyway, but he ends up being friends with Sherlock Holmes. And Sherlock Holmes is supposedly have died in the first season. Right? And so you feel bad, well, if you're an empath, you feel bad. And they have this whole big thing about how they went over the cliff, and then there's Moriarty. He was friggin' scary. So I don't know how that guy projected that kind of malevolence. I have seen actual malevolence and unfortunately experienced way too much. But this dude scared even me. And I don't think that, I've been through so much, but this guy was friggin' scary. And it's funny because Moriarty was also this Chinese guy, which of course is not the case because it was British stuff. So I think they were changing it around, but it totally worked, actually. You totally bought that this guy was Moriarty. God, it was so frightening. And he was so evil. Like, you want to talk about studying evil, like, definitely watch this show anyway. So of course he's chasing Holmes covertly. And then, God, it's just an interesting show. And then there are these doctors, these brand new doctors, who they are actual doctors, but they're called fellows. So if I understand it rightly, they're actual, like, they've completed their doctoral training, but they go and do some extra training. So they're doing extra training at the Holmes Institute, which, studies, unhelpable cases, right? Unsolvable cases. So if you go there, you usually, and people come from all over the world to go there to get help, if nobody else can help you. So it's like a diagnostic center, which is good. So fascinating place. And then, he doesn't know what happened. He goes over the falls, Rockenbach Falls, trying to chase Watson. Watson's trying to chase Sherlock Holmes because Moriarty's trying to kill him. And but then what happens is, he kind of gets over the falls and he bangs his head and then he has brain injury and he doesn't know what happens. And then he weirdly wakes up in this hospital, and then Shinwell, I don't know, It's a weird name. But anyway, he's actually a British fellow, sort of hard knocks kind of, I think Cockney, I'm not sure, kind of the lower class British guy, because of course there was definitely a class structure in England. I obviously not now, but back then there was. And so he was his friend though. He was his best friend, one of his best friends next to, and we find out later that of course Holmes had set something up. And so that's the beginning of the first season. And it is this cutting-edge clinic. Gosh, so wonderful. It even has its own robot. I think his name was Clyde. Anyway, and it was just beautiful to see this cutting-edge, new medicine, how the genes that express themselves affect your lives in ways nobody would ever realize. Like, you may not understand that right now, but your genes affect almost everything you do. And if you are sick and you don't know why you were sick and nobody else can, look into genes, because that was one of the things that happened to me. And I don't think I mentioned it. So this show was just extraordinary. And then all these people, they have all these 4 doctors. There's 2 twins. And there's an interest, and he hires all these people for their unique qualities. There was this Chinese baby, one of the Chinese babies that was born and then given to wealthy Texans. And so she has a Texas accent and she's Southern, but of course she's from rural China. So it's this fascinating interplay between, her original culture and then her culture of being, Texan, like Buc-ee's and all the other sort of, Texas barbecue and all the other things that make, people Texan, whatever, her sort of bigger than life personality. So very cool stuff. And then they have a psychopath, which they knew was a psychopath, but he liked her because Watson's very curious. So he wondered, what was she going to do? She is a doctor. She's a neurologist, not unlike Hannibal Lecter. She's not a psychiatrist, though. She's a neurologist. But yeah, so she adds an interesting piece to the whole story. And then these 2 twin brothers who are different kind of specialties, different kind of doctors. I think one's a functional doctor, not quite a naturopath, but kind of like that. And then one of them, I think, is an immunologist. So all these doctors, all these people. And then, of course, Mary is is Watson's ex-wife. And she kind of runs the hospital. She's kind of the CEO or whatever that runs the hospital. So that's kind of sets the scene. So, and they just solve amazing cases. It's just so fantastic. All the different cases, a lot of brain cases, a lot of different kinds of things that have affected people. It's just so very cool. Genetic warfare, which is real, hacking your genome, which is also real. Biohacking. I really don't do the biohacking. It's probably not safe for you to do, although you can do it. People can do it, like, hacking your genome, hacking your biology. Oh man, that doesn't end well for people, I don't think. There's an episode in the 2nd season that actually talks about that. So, and then it's just such a glorious thing. I found out that I had methylation issues because of the show. Because they were talking about how different genetic markers can affect people in ways, and most doctors are really pathetic about that. I'm sorry, I'm Gen X, man. Gen X. So that's really true. I mean, I don't want to be whatever, but, basically Gen X, we have to look after ourselves usually. And no, it's not okay. So, so I've been trying to get help for a really long time about some of the stuff that I've had. But I find that Watson is such a great show for that. Because what I do is I go and take it on AI, and me and Claude talk about it. And we figured out one day that I had a serious methylation issue. And of course I looked it up, and of course I didn't just rely on Claude, but you can find almost everything on the internet if you know where to look. And then I found out methylation is this thing. It's this sort of activity or process that your cells, I believe, do. And it's related to different kinds of things like energy in your cell, DNA, and mitochondria, and sometimes you're born with a lack of doing it. Like it's a process, but your body can't do it well properly, and it's not easy to find. In all fairness, it's not easy to find. I mean, there are symptoms for it, and I had it, but they also are symptoms for other things. So yeah, nobody caught it in me. I did, however, take a DNA test. I highly recommend them. But as 23andMe is going bankrupt, don't go to that one. I did a different one that was more of a medical DNA. It was quite expensive, but I'm very happy I took it because I found out I'm naturally deficient in vitamin B and vitamin D, meaning my body does not metabolize those as well due to genetic factors. And then there's also, of course, other genetic things. But then this movie would be 3 hours. But I don't know if anybody wants to watch that. But anyway, because it's really about Claude, but I have to set the scene. Not Claude. Well, it's about Claude because Claude is very cool, but it's also about Watson. And how amazing it is. So basically, that's what Watson does. He, talks about people's DNA and the different kinds of genetic markers or modifications that can affect a person's life. So methylation, look it up. So that really has helped me. How do you solve a methylation crisis? Well, you take something called methylated vitamin B because it adds the methyl group, if I'm saying this right, to the vitamin B, and it's this whole big really complex process that your body goes through, but it has been life-changing for me. So I take one, I take a methyl vitamin B, and it's amazing. So that's something I got from Watson, and there's lots of other things that actually have come, from the show, like people who wake up and then speak another language. That actually happens. Or wake up and then they don't remember who they are, amnesia and different things like that. And then you can get different things where other stuff can happen to you that nobody understands why they happen. So, long story short, beautiful show, amazing ending. Oh my God, I watched that so many times. The end of last season, there was, of course, Moriarty was hacking people's biome, kind of their biochemical markers, which you can actually do. You can build a disease that will kill a person because it's tailored to their own specific DNA. Now, there is a way to save the person. You have to give them the antidote that's also matched to their DNA, which, of course, Watson can do, right? So that's amazing. That's amazing. But then I'm sad. I'm sad about the second season. It just doesn't know where it's going. It doesn't know what it is. It doesn't know what it's doing. It doesn't know what's up, and that makes me sad. Apparently their robot is gone because, I think it was just a sort of a, kind of a funny, interesting science fiction thing for the first season. But everything's changed now. They don't really care about the science as much, or the new thought aspect, or the new age aspect, or whatever it is. The neuroscience aspect in the way that they did before. They seem to be going off on these weird wild goose chases, And, now one of the twins is actually going out with the woman who's from Texas. And that's just not going well. It's really rather tacky. And then the psychopath neurologist, Ingrid, I think her name is now back, even though they fired her at the end of the last season, and we don't know where to put her. She's trying to figure out her place, and whatever. And then the differences between the two twins was actually very pronounced. Weirdly enough, it's one young guy playing both of the roles. And it was extraordinary last year. But now it just seems really lazy. It's like they're not really trying to make the two boys, they're really young looking, so I call them boys. When you get to be almost 60, you can do that. they're not really trying very hard. And I don't know if it's just they're sort of resting on their laurels or feeling like they don't have to try very hard, but it just makes me sad. And so I wonder if anybody's had that experience that, they love this show and then the second season, it's all messed up. It's everywhere and nowhere at the same place. Shinwell has no job now, which is sad for some reason. He's kind of Watson's assistant, but he's kind of this like nursing student, which makes absolutely no sense because if you've worked in academics as long as I have and you've helped nurses, because I used to work in a nursing lab, figure that out, but done many things, really have. And you don't just become a nursing student next season. Like you have to go to school, you have to get a degree, then you have to go and do all kinds of practical work. You don't just become a nurse. Like, you know what I mean? So that's not working. And, I think they could have done this really well. We meet Holmes. Oh my God, this guy, I don't know where they found him, where he's from. You can't take your eyes off of him. He's just mesmerizing. But the broken-hearted piece is he turns out to be a nut job weirdo. That broke my heart. But then I realized I don't know how polite and friendly Sherlock Holmes actually ever was. I liked his genius and his ability to crack cases because it mirrors my own. And I think we're both sort of geniuses in our own way. But yeah, this guy turns out to be not such a great guy, which of course breaks Watson's heart and weirdly enough keeps breaking into his apartment. And just turns out to be kind of the squirrely, eccentric, genius guy, which is not good. So then that upsets Watson. And then he has a brother. What is his brother's name? Man, I can't get it right now. But anyway, his brother's got a unique name. And so it's this whole big thing now about his brother. What is his brother's name? Oh, well, I'm going to think about it later. Anyway, and now his brother wants to wrest control of the Holmes Clinic, from Watson, and it's just ugly, man. And then we keep having all these side stories that really don't make any sense. Like Mary, which is beautiful, but Mary found out that did she find out that she had a brother or something that she didn't know she had, which is fine, but I mean, it doesn't really go with the story that, and just different kinds of things that are kind of happening. And then, and then what was her name? Anyway, the Texas woman, she found out that she actually might meet her birth family, but then she found out they didn't. And it's just all these different things that don't seem to go together. They don't seem to care about the center anymore. And it just seems to be almost like a backdrop for their personal issues. We did have the one, I was yesterday or the day before, where we meet his dad. Now, that was actually fascinating. Then we find out that his dad is a famous musician, but he was terrible at music. So, in a way, I guess that's kind of an interesting piece. So I didn't mind that one so much, that his dad is kind of, him and his dad couldn't really get along because he wasn't a brilliant musician and his dad really was. So, stuff like that. But I just wanted to talk about it because it was such a great show. It was just such a great show. And for me, pinged so many amazing things about my own health and well-being. But I'm just hoping that they actually pick it up because it's just everywhere now, and I guess I just wanted to talk about if anybody else had noticed that it doesn't seem to have a soul anymore in the way that it used to have, so I don't know. Everybody put it in the comments. Tell me what you think of Watson and whether or not you're going to keep watching it. I'm going to keep watching it. I absolutely love it. But, we're going to see what happens. Okay. Good morning, everybody. See you later.